Hi, everyone. Everyone can hear? Oh, OK. So, hi. How you guys liking the conference so far? All good? Happy. So, just for me to get to know everyone, how many of you already knows Backstage? OK, that's quite a lot. OK, good to hear. So I'm very excited to be here at the conference, my first time. So if I look nervous, because I am, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about Backstage and development. For the past year, I had the opportunity to develop internally at Spotify Backstage Plugins, and I could see how handy it makes to communicate data across the organization. So I thought, why not create a talk about it? So a little bit about myself. I'm Talita. I'm a software engineer at Spotify for about 2 years now. And I can say that front-end development is my cup of tea, but I also like to explore cloud or backend. And my main fear is to help others. So if I inspire someone or if I can help with any questions around Backstage, it will definitely make my day. So feel free to reach out around the conference. So let's get started. Here's our agenda. So first, for who didn't raise your hands, I'm going to explain a little bit about Backstage and what it is. Then we're going to go into a more specific topic, which is Backstage plugins. Then I would like to give a real case scenario that we use at Spotify internally. 100% biased is the one that I helped it to build. So hope you guys like it. And last but not least, I would like to show you a few steps to get started. So what is Backstage? Well, Backstage is an open source framework for building developer portals. It was developed at Spotify and open sourced it in March 2020. And since then, it has become an incubating project at the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. OK, fancy words, what developer portal is. You know, when you're trying to do a super simple task and ended up with like 5 to 10 tabs open, don't know what to do, many interfaces. Basically, you ended up spending more time trying to figure out what should be done in each interface instead of doing the task itself. I get it. I go through that every single time. But what if we could combine all of those tools under the same place? Well, in a bigger picture, that is the idea of a developer portal and Backstage itself. We try to aggregate all of those tools into one space and provide the same experience for all of those, reducing our cognitive load and context switching. So we don't want to spend time trying to figure out how those 100 tools work. We just want to do our task and go to the next. So navigating through tons of tabs or trying to find the right person at the right time with the right information, no more. We get only one front end for all our tools. So it's a place where you can find things from toolings to services or docs, where you can basically type what you would like to do, and it's going to show up what tools, what repositories, or even what documentation is available for that topic. And regardless of who is managing them or where it's running, we let developers focus on what truly matters, which is studying new technology and developing new features instead of studying how each interface actually works. So, but how can we fit all those different interfaces and functionalities under the same space, right? Well, Backstage is powerful, largely because of its highly extensible plugin architecture. So then what is a Backstage plugin then? Well, plugins are essentially additional functionality for your Backstage and makes your Backstage useful for your company. And it can come from anywhere, like from an internal team that is willing to improve a process or share some data around, or it can come from external sources, like from the plugin marketplace. Essentially, it can be specific to your company and very tied up to your architecture, or it can be open sourced and reusable. So within Spotify, it has been very powerful to get contributions from various infrastructure teams. But talking in engineering language, at the end of the day, a plugin is just a pile of TypeScript that got bundled together and released it. It's not fancy stuff. And in fact, you can see many of those packages already in npmjs.com if you search prefixed with @backstage. And it can be extended from front-end perspective or from the back-end perspective. When we talk about the front-end perspective, you're likely going to see a React component mounting some route, mounting some dashboards with some data, or allowing you to do some quick actions. And the back-end perspective will likely connect your front-end plugin to external services or the services inside your company. And this is a picture of how Backstage looks internally at Spotify. I literally look at this screen almost every single day, and you can already spot a couple of plugins like Stack Overflow, PagerDuty, or Skill Exchange. But this is highly customizable, and every Backstage is different. It needs to make sense to your company. So probably you're going to take it out some plugins or put in new ones, change the colors, move things around. We see a lot of our contributors or adopters being very creative with their Backstage instances. And a bit of numbers. So last time that I counted, which was when I was creating this presentation, a couple of months ago, we had over 250 plugins developed internally at Spotify. But I cannot give you an exact number of how many we have externally, because they can be anywhere. So last time, I counted on the plugin marketplace. When you create a plugin, you don't have to put it there. But on the marketplace, we have 130. So, yeah. So I think we can agree that 250 plugins is quite a lot. So who manages everything? Who owns those plugins? Well, that brings us to our core philosophy. It's a total of 3. And the first one is ownership. So for each piece of software at a company, we believe there should be a single point of contact. And they are the owners of the metadata around it. So the team that wrote the software should be able to decide if it's production ready or if it's still experimental, for example. Or it should be able to declare like its dependencies inside or outside of the company. It's really about putting the ownership on the teams that created the software instead of creating a big central platform that dictates the ownership. Second, and my favorite, is Backstage is the interface. So it is really an aggregator. So for sure, your company has tons of infrastructure tools. And for sure, you would like to expose all of those for the same interface. But we are not really looking to re-implementing all its functionality. So if we think about like the CI/CD example, where we would like to see the status of our build, if we had any issues with that and we would like to go troubleshoot, we probably better launch into an external system. Otherwise, we're going to have to re-implement everything in Backstage, and it doesn't really make sense. We already have tons of services doing a better job at this. So we are really looking to giving you a single pane of glass experience, a place that you go and check pinpointed information. But Backstage is rarely the source of truth. We are aggregating information for external sources. So it makes it a lot more flexible and easy to adopt, because instead of replacing everything that your company is already using, we're just adding a layer on top of it, and it brings it all together under the single interface. And then last but not least, autonomy. Now, when we talk about autonomy at Spotify, it's already on our culture. But what truly means is that each team is able to operate on its own and makes the best decisions for themselves. So when we started with Backstage, we knew that we couldn't create like a big platform team that dictates everything top-down and implements the whole platform for everyone. So based on that, we built Backstage on top of the plugin mechanism as a way to allow everyone to build it together. So internally, we have a team of 4 to 6 people that manages our internal deployment of Backstage at its core, and then over 250 plugins that was contributed across 100 other teams. Who owns the domain of expertise? So based on that information, the team, the plugin that shows the current builds is provided by the team that owns and maintains the build systems. Or the plugins that shows the data pipelines is owned by the data team, so on and so forth. That really worked well for us and our culture. And within our adopter meetings, we see that it's also working well for others. Because with this, you can grow like much faster because you're not relying on a single team to manage everything and run into a resource constraints at the end of the day. Also, a single team might not have like a knowledge across any given domain, right? So it's much better for the team that owns the problem to provide the solution and maintains it. So, going to a more practical example, how the Lighthouse squad used the plugin architecture to solve its problem. Based on the last point, it's important to understand what the Lighthouse squad does. So this squad focuses on collecting time measurements, app size, scroll performance, and many other aspects around quality. But we cannot just collect all this data. We also need to present it effectively to every single person across Spotify. So, and when I counted, each week this squad collects 16 billion data metrics per week related to quality. I tried to sum up this number, very tricky to pronounce. I just rounded up. So I think we can agree that this amount of data brings tons of challenges. Also, each squad has a way to work, and each squad would like to see the data in some sort of way. Depending on your role, you also would like to see the data in an overall view. Or if you're more engineering, you would like to see in more pinpointed, like minutes or seconds. So how could we solve this problem? So many different use cases. Our development process was quite simple and straightforward. I was like, should I place it? I think I should place it. So we did an MVP with the engineers itself. We tried to not spend too much time on it because we wanted to actually use it to interview squads across Spotify, client-facing or internal squads. So on the interview process, we tried to understand what are their expectations with them, with the data that we collected. So our first MVP was basically like a dump of all the data that we collected in simple dashboards. More so, we could present to our clients what could we offer. So based on the data collected from the interview, we iterated over it. And it's my favorite. If you don't iterate over your product, probably it's gonna become obsolete like as soon as you finish. So iterate over it. And one thing that we kept in mind is that Backstage is an aggregator. So we didn't want to rebuild things that already other services could give to us, but we wanted to improve the developer experience overall. So it was very hard to support all scenarios, but one thing that everyone had in common is that they would like to see, to understand the data through the Spotify lenses in a big scale, so within a 3-month time frame. So that became the goal of our plugin. So we allow engineers to visualize their most relevant metrics in an overall picture and compare with other squads. And you can also compare between features, versions, or even apps within our domain. So, and if in-depth detail is needed, we allow the user to go to a third-party service, and we already fulfill their search. So they don't have to relearn how the other service work. We already fulfill like all the filters and all the path for you. And if you need extra detail, it can also allow you to access our data pipelines. We've already some recipes, some queries that you could run to collect your data. And this is I'm not going to do a live demo, sorry, but this is a video that I created. And sorry, again, because all this data that you see here is fake due to legal reasons. So, yeah. But on the first page, you can see all different metrics, and here how the dashboards look like. They're all interactive, so if you click in one of the links, you're going to be forwarded to a third-party service already with the information, and you can also filter. And you can see here that we also allow you to compare you by version. Yeah. There. I think that's it. So how can you start with Backstage? Well, there's a lot of features with Backstage, and there's a point that's going to come very particular to your use case. But first thing is to try by yourself. So go to our repository, fork it, or you can also run nowadays a command line to kickstart the Backstage on your computer, and try it out. Try to run by yourself, and it should take less than 1 hour. I had to do this a couple of times because I developed a plugin over open source, and then it's not that complicated. Then second, connect to your own service. Now, this point is a little bit more, depends on your company, because each company uses different set of services, so it can be a little bit more tricky. But take a few weeks and a few developers, and I think you're going to get it done. If you have any trouble with that, feel free to reach out our community. We have Spotifyers actively responding on the Discord channel. So if you bump up on something, you can reach out for help. And then third, it's start small, but it's strategic. So we don't want to waste resources here. So try to find some feature that you would like to bring to Backstage that already brings value to your company. But you don't have to go crazy and migrate everything, try to implement everything. Choose a small feature, but pinpointed that brings high value. You can partner with another squad to help you to achieve that. And that is a bridge to our fourth step, which is spread the word. So we also don't recommend creating one team to implement everything top-down. So spread the word and incentivize people to submit plugins. They are really encapsulated, so they are not going to destroy your Backstage instances. You should not be worried with that. You can just kickstart a plugin and solve pinpoint problems. And you can see that you're going to grow much faster with that. And that's it from me. You can join our Backstage community if you scan the QR code. It's going to forward you to our documentation, and there you can have access to the Discord channel and anything else that you need. And thank you very much. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out around the conference.